JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. Tuesday, May 13th, 312 on a fine afternoon to talk quick about the market. Some names I'm looking at go from there. It's going to be a quick rant. Don't have too much to talk about here today. Markets resuming yesterday's rally. S&P's up about 1%. The Dow's actually in the red today, only because of United Healthcare. Just crazy to watch that one. Sad that that event is kind of like where things started to move lower, but then it's just been a snowball ever since. And as much as I look at names like that for a bounce, it's like I was trying to play bounces on that one earlier into earnings. Anyway, so I talked about 580 to 590 on the SPY. Would not be surprised to see more chop tomorrow as well. I hard pressed to find a break over 590 tomorrow, but you can't rule it out. I mean, actually, we have 45 minutes, 47 minutes left in today, so can't rule it out either. But I think that'll be a key spot. And then the CPI data this morning, right? So it's like depending on what you read or who you listen, whatever you're listening to, it's either spun as, oh wow, this is the best CPI report year over year, although 4-year low and things like that, or it's this is just the resting point before the next leg higher in inflation, which certainly could be the case, right? You can't rule out any of that, but I mean, could have been a worst case scenario, right? We could already have inflation and then worry about higher inflation or I wouldn't say higher inflation because it's been high for a while, but increasing as the tariffs start impacting that number. I keep thinking of some outside scenarios, right? And in the midst of all the market turmoil and everything selling off, it's very easy to start looking at what would happen. I kept saying that if deals didn't happen, obviously the market would just keep tumbling, right? I mean, if China and U.S. didn't have a trade agreement in the coming weeks, it's gonna be bad. It's gonna be bad for everybody, right? And then all the disruption, it's just not a good thing. And then the way it was done, it wasn't like there was a discussion and then back and forth, and it was just kind of like just boom, we're gonna slap this on even more than what we already had, and then it just escalated so quick. So that's why so I post things on FinTwit and everybody, I try to keep things not political, right? So but when it's I'm with everything that I do, especially in trading, like I like the best markets to trade. What do they say? And I don't know if it was Friday, right? Bears always sound smart, but the bulls make money. That's just usually how it is, right? All the bears, if you over the years, if there's one thing over 20 years doing this, the people who go on TV, the Doug Cassidy used to be, the Dennis Gartmans, the Bill Jim Kanos, all those people, smart people, they'll go on there and they'll sound like the professor at Harvard talking about economics. And they've done it on Tesla, all these names over the years. And it's very easy in the midst of all that selling off to make it sound like, wow, this is gonna be horrible for everybody. And it would have been, and it still could be. But you have to have an open mind. Otherwise, I mean, the hard data was still strong. And so anyway, we'll see where things play out here. I would love to get my bullhorns on and say, wow, new all-time highs are coming in the next week. Certainly could be the case, right? But I think there's got to be more deals discussed. And then, earnings season has been great. So it's kind of like, it's the kind of sigh of relief. Okay, things still don't look too bad. And then we'll see how things play out. I mean, there's people talking that we're already in a recession. You would have think that, all the shelves would be emptied. Again, I don't want to rule all this stuff out, but maybe those scenarios that could have been are kind of not going to play out, and then we'll see how things play its course. To me, it's almost like the analogy: what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And it's like if the economy hasn't been killed, and then we get these deals, maybe it's going to make it stronger. So, and I'm all about efficiencies. I'm anti-regulation, right? To me, it's like let the free markets determine the value of an item, the value of a service, the value of all that stuff. So, uh, you know, all right, so that's kind of the overall market. You take a look at the upper Bollinger Band too. I mean, it hasn't been up at the upper Bollinger Band for a while, but 589.24. So, I don't really do my charts too much or talk about them too much because I do quick rants. But when it comes to charts, I think there's multiple ingredients to finding opportunities, right? And the technicals, right? Charts is your history lesson, fundamentals, macroeconomic situations, things like that. So when I'm looking at charts, the Bollinger Bands is one of the technicals or the indicators that I look at because it kind of it for if there's consolidation and they're tight, that means there's probably a breakout coming, up or down. And when they're up at above or at the upper Bollinger Band, or at or below the lower Bollinger Band, and those are extended, typically those mean oversold or overbought areas. So we're right at the upper Bollinger Band on the SPY. Typically, the SPY doesn't remain elevated above the upper Bollinger Band for a day or two. So to see it up here, 589 and change, would probably is going to be resistance. Got up to 589.07 earlier today. So just watching that. Not saying it can't, right? I mean, nothing's 100% certain, but I get trying to find an edge in trading. You got to find every indicator that works for you. And those are one of the indicators. Bollinger Bands, 250-day, the 50 and 200-day moving average, a relative strength index to RSI, and then momentum indicators, right? Those are a couple of the major ones I look at. All right. So that's rants for other days on charting. So that's kind of the overall market. There's not much. So we have the CPI data. We have earnings Thursday. We got Alibaba, Walmart. There's other names reporting. So I don't know how much that'll move market. And then it's kind of like headline driven. So outside of that, if we get some consolidation, maybe you test 590 by Friday, and then go from there. And that's the overall market. Also the VIX. I mean, just a meltdown. Back under $20 yesterday. Down another 3.8% here today. And so it's back to levels almost back in February. So remarkable stuff. All right, so now that's overall markets. So just quick on individual names, and it's frustrating seeing the gap Monday, missing the RH, Lottos, W, Deck. Oh, Deck would have been tough. And then it's like salt in the wounds today, seeing First Solar is going absolutely bonkers. It's up 22%, $191. Again, I was talking about it Friday when it was rampant. It was 140. I was looking at Lottos, and then I was looking for this week's strikes. The 170s were too expensive on a risk reward basis. No catalyst to think of outside of China US having a deal, possibly having a deal. And to me, that would almost like not be positive for First Solar, because China's one of the biggest suppliers of wafers on the planet. So needless to say, it stinks to miss out. The tax bill, I guess, if you take a look at the election and what was happening with solar, and especially some of the green energy things that went on with the old administration or the previous administration, some of these green energy names got sold off based on the fact that tax credits and all the incentives were going to go away for solar and all these green energy companies. Then the tax bill came out yesterday, and at first glance it looked like it was coming away, and then it wasn't. It was like not. It was a best case scenario for these names. So fortunately missed for solar. I was looking at the open, and then it gets to the point where the premiums are too tough on a risk reward basis. But I mean, the 170s were $1. It was 25, $30 for earlier. Just crazy stuff. But which leads me to Solar Edge. So, if you take a look at the sector as a whole, and Solar Edge is one of my favorite names to end last year and into this year. It's one of those names that's either going to be bankrupt, right? It's gonna delist. The debt is eventually going to be the end of them, or it's going to reverse course and it used to be a $300-400 stock because of its growth potential, right? So it's kind of got through the hard times in regards to its debt, and then started spinning off some of its assets. And then on the flip side, it trades 1x revenues, just had earnings that kind of bested estimates, and now it looks like it's in position to really take off. It's tough because if I was going to play solar sector or green energy, it would have been First Solar, but it's unplayable. So then watching some of the names this morning, and Solar Edge was sitting there and not trading much higher compared to First Solar. I said, hey, maybe there's going to be a sympathy move with Solar Edge. So got those June strikes. Still hopeful here. It's got a 33% short interest. At some point, it might have a huge short squeeze. So that was kind of rationale adding those. 200-day moving average down there at $17. So if it does pull back down there tomorrow, I might look for some more strikes longer term, right? So got the June strikes. I'll probably look further out. So that's Solar Edge. Then you have GameStop, right? So I mean, it was like a month ago I was talking about GameStop having one of the quickest death crosses, right? So the death cross is when the 200-day moving average, the 50-day moving average crosses under the 200-day moving average, right? So that usually means the momentum is not in favor of upside; it's in favor of downside. And then we had the big ramp from earnings and the announcement of its treasury purchases, or at least that it's going to do. And then it looked like it was going to have the quickest death cross to golden cross that I've ever seen. And then sure enough, it's taken a month. And then finally it has a golden cross set up. So maybe this is the time it breaks out. I was looking at strikes past June, but I'm just going to hold my June strikes for now, because if there's the announcement when it finally comes out, I think it trades into the 30. So that's GameStop. Let's see. Why don't I have my charts going here? Still hopeful here on Biogen. Disappointing open all the way down under 122, and then it bounced back. Was pretty much flat earlier. I was also looking at Regeneron calls. I just think at some point they're going to take off, and Biogen's going to go on a 5-10% rally. So that's kind of the thought process there. I'll continue to hold those lottos. Roku looks great all the way up to almost to the 200-day moving average, 72.60, went to 72.17. Unfortunately, the premiums, I mean, my calls are up 50%, but I thought the premiums would be substantially higher than where they are right now. But I'll at some, hopefully I get an opportunity to close out the calls to cover costs and ride the rest. Um, and I think once it breaks 200-day moving average, off to the races. That's Roku. And then some other. So VKTX, I almost added the August 65 earlier today, but then I'm thinking, I still have the 32s for this week, so I'll be patient because, um, if there's news or catalyst, the news or catalyst would be the M&A, right? So, um, I just don't want to have some other bio news or some to that effect, and the stock sells off. So maybe I'll be able to get them less expensive, but that's kind of the strike I'm looking at. Possibly the VKTX 60s or 65 for August. And those calls will encompass data. I mean, you hope so. The phase 2 Voyage study, I think it's called, their oral GLP-1 study. And if you start to take a look, I mean, they already had best in class. It's just a matter of if that phase 2 oral data comes out over 8% on a 13-week trial, you got to think it trades up 70, 80, $90 again. But I mean, the premiums aren't there right now, which is a good thing, right? Or maybe it's it's saying, hey, the market doesn't think that's going to happen. So, I had the calls back. I remember I traded VKTX. I think it was like $13. I had the 20 strikes, and I played those up for like 1,000 bagger. Uh, and then all of a sudden, then I sold them, and then the next week they announced their data, and the rest is history. Went to 20 to 50, and I still made money on calls on the way up. But then it was at $90, and I was playing it for 110, and that never played out on their data. And then, the rest competitive concerns, and then these bio names. It's always an issue of time to market, right? So early stage companies, especially in the GLP-1 space, it's not even about, hey, we have the best in class drug. It's if no one buys them out, um, it's like, how do they get the drug to market? It costs billions of dollars, which VKTX does have, but there's just so many hurdles and with the FDA and all. So when you see companies like VKTX, the shorts come in because they say, wow, that's an easy opportunity, even unless there's a buyout, but that's the risk they take. So, and you see a lot of option volume on VKTX, and some of it I think is these shorts who they short the stock and then they just protect themselves via either selling to open or actually buying some calls further out of the money to at least hedge themselves if there's some kind of crazy news. So that's VKTX. So at some point I'll add some more strikes. Walmart, unfortunately, it's laying an egg here again today. It's got that gap fill at $102. I was hoping it was going to have some follow through, well, green yesterday, and then follow through today, and that hasn't been the case. So I'm probably just going to hold my calls through Wednesday close, and then just hold them as a lotto. I think Walmart's going to have a great earnings report. Um, I think that's it. I'm trying to think about some of the other. Yeah, Hims and Hers going nuts again today. You know what? Joby. Joby was a name I traded for a lot of success earlier in the year and the end of last year, and then it just fell off. It was double digits, then back down under 6, and then you had Archer Aviation going bonkers today, and Joby's not doing much. So at some point, maybe I'll revisit that name. I think that's it, folks. Let's have a great day. I'll be back on audio later. Rock and roll.